It was none other than Union Home Minister Amit Shah who entered the battlefield against the opposition on the issue of corruption. I still remember being super impressed, viewer, with Rahul Gandhi back in 2013. He had walked into a press conference in Delhi and declared that the ordinance protecting convicted MPs like Lalu Prasad Yadav ought to be torn up and thrown out. It was this press conference at the Press Club of India in 2013. Many grumbled at the time that it was disrespectful to Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the Prime Minister then, that Rahul had broken ranks in public. Sure, it may well have been part of a dramatic image-building exercise on the threshold of an election being led by Rahul Gandhi, a calculated effort to paint Rahul Gandhi as a young, fresh reformer, separate from the tainted and jaded old guard of the UPA. But for me, it struck a chord, and I have to be honest with you. Here was a politician saying something that cut through the noise and called out corruption in plain words. In the end, it turned out to be a dud electorally, because we know what happened in 2014. Rahul Gandhi was never really in a position to project himself as an anti-corruption crusader after sitting silently for nearly 10 years of the UPA when corruption was the raging issue of the day. Finding his voice only with elections a few months away in 2013 was never going to convince the public. But the principle of his opposition to that ordinance was absolutely correct. And it is worth remembering that the very first victim of Rahul's righteous indignation was Lalu Prasad Yadav. Because flash forward a decade now, Lalu is now Rahul's closest ally and friend. In the middle of today's political battle over the Corrupt Netas Bill, where civil discourse is at its lowest, Rahul stands shoulder to shoulder with the very man who symbolized his one clear principled stand back in 2013. Yes, today Amit Shah's words will be angrily dismissed as hypocritical. And yes, the charge that the BJP is a washing machine that calibrates its anti-corruption stance to suit the accused has some merit. There are enough examples of that. But when Rahul Gandhi's entire political genesis was crafted around tearing up a bill to protect corrupt politicians, then what ground is he left standing on when he gamely embraces the very first casualty of that principled position? Lalu Prasad Yadav. Is Amit Shah really wrong to question these double standards, especially when Rahul presents corruption in such fierce blacks and whites? Is Rahul really in a position to be an anti-corruption revolutionary when his party balks at the tainted Netas Bill? Has Rahul's politics abandoned the principled theoretical ground and entered the world of evidence and compromise simply because he has racked up 3 major election defeats and now finds common cause with the Lalu family to burnish a socialist son of the soil identity for himself? Let me be absolutely clear. I too believe that the principles of natural justice are not fully upheld in this tainted Netas Bill. Yes, I do believe there is room for political vendetta. But I also believe this country needs a draconian measure to uproot political corruption at the highest levels and shake the system. And if the opposition says it cannot trust the judicial system to play guardrail here, as Amit Shah has emphasized, then what does that really mean? The truth is, everything is a narrative war today. And in this narrative, the public will see an opposition against a bill that seeks drastic and rapid accountability for crimes by elected representatives. There is nothing principled about that. And joining me live tonight on the big debate over the tainted Netas Bill, on which Home Minister Amit Shah has just put out an aggressive defense in an interview, is Nalin, spokesperson of the BJP, senior advocate in the Supreme Court. But I'm going to start with Vivek Tankha, a member of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha from the Congress party, also a senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Welcome to you both and thank you for your time, Mr. Tankha. I'll start it off with you. Your first response to what the Home Minister has said. He has said that this is a moral argument, that the Congress has failed the moral test by opposing the tainted Netas Bill and that it exposes double standards. How would you respond, sir, to that?
There's a historical perspective also. If you remember, till BJP had not come into power, whenever somebody faced such a charge, also arrested, he or she would immediately resign. You didn't have to have a law for that. It used to happen automatically because there was always a moral side. The problem only began when there was a trust deficit in the investigations made during these last 10 years. There was a feeling that the opposition parties are being singled out. There was a feeling that the opposition leaders are being arrested when there was no case. Satyendra Jain is one such example where the CBI says there's nothing to charge him. But you did keep him in jail for I don't know how much time. So, because of the trust deficit, questions are arising that this law has been brought only for the reason that it is like aiming for the opposition, that you put them behind bars, getting bail, in many laws is not easy, especially, for instance, PMLA, where there's a twin test, and 30 days can pass very easily. And once 30 days pass, the gentleman, he or she has to resign. So there's the opposition feels, and a lot of people in the country have an opinion, that this is an ill-conceived bill. There should have been a better thought process. Maybe it's now being discussed by the Joint Parliamentary Committee, so there will be input from all sides.
Yes.
And frankly speaking, in my opinion, such a bill was not even needed, but for the fact that the opposition leaders, in some of them at least, who were imprisoned and they didn't leave the government, and they continued to function, which never used to happen before. So till BJP came into power, it was an unwritten law or an unwritten text that whenever there was a charge, somebody was arrested, forget arrest, even if there was a serious allegation, people would resign. This changed only when the BJP government came into existence.
Let's hear from the BJP. Nalin, Kohli, how would you respond to that specific charges saying such a law wasn't even necessary? It's because of the way the BJP has been that a law has been made necessary. This is not anti-corruption but anti-opposition, says Vivek Tankha.
Sure, I think Vivek ji is a dear friend and a very senior person, so I understand his perspective, but I don't agree with it. I have a counter perspective and let your viewers look at it. So let's now put it in a different way. Up to 2014, there was a certain model, primarily because that's when the Congress had almost an uninterrupted reign or being in power, except for some years, like the ND was there for 6 years, there was a Janata government, things like that. Broadly, it was Congress supported for most of it. So it was business like usual. That business like usual has been shaken by the establishment of Prime Minister Modi from 2014 onwards. So now let's say there's no need for a law. The biggest cash recovery in the history of India, and I'm saying history of independent India from 1947 right up to today, is in the house of a Congress MP or ex-MP in Odisha, 350 crores. I mean, let's again repeat the figure so that it sinks in. 350 crores. Within Bengal, let's take the current case of a Congress MLA, 12 crores cash. 12 crores cash. I mean, basically, you don't spend more than 10,000 rupees now in cash. You do everything digitally. This person has 12 crores cash in his house. So obviously, the Congress party has something to worry. The old system or the old nuance on which they work, that business could go on as always, will happen. Let's take the case of Satyendra Jain. There are multiple cases on him. Some he's getting discharged, but some he's not being given bail. So you can't use the ones which have, let's say, the evidence doesn't stand up that much, to say that the ones in which evidence stands up, you will reject those. Life is not that easy. If a bureaucrat is arrested, that person is suspended immediately. These are the rules in state after state in the center. In every field, the minute there is an arrest, there is a suspension. In the case of politicians, there was an act that used to say that you will have to resign. And then that was sought to be changed. Mr. Rahul Gandhi tore that famous ordinance and threw it in the dustbin when Manmohan Singh ji was there. Now, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, Ms. Sonia Gandhi and others are facing serious charges in National Herald. They may not be arrested, but have they resigned from their post? So if I take the argument of Vivek ji, why haven't they resigned as MPs? when after all they've got no relief, whether before the income tax, whether before the High Court, or so on and so forth. So therefore, it's about accountability. Now, accountability will exist whether the BJP is in government or it's not. Today the BJP is in government, tomorrow somebody else may be. Earlier somebody else was there, today the BJP is there. Now there's a JPC on that, a committee of the parliament is there. That committee, some opposition members are saying we will not even attend it. So you can't have it both ways. You will not participate, you will not put your reservations to it, but you will come out in the media and run it down as draconian. So it doesn't work like that. It's a democracy. If you believe in it, so do function in parliament and go ahead and do your parliamentary duty.
Mr. Tankha, respond. The BJP basically saying this is a law that will apply to all. Let it go through the process. Let there be a discussion on it. And the principled stand taken by the Congress is because you've got something to hide in the face of a proposal for tighter accountability of alleged corruption at the highest levels.
I think my friend Nalin, who's also a very good lawyer, we all practice in Supreme Court together, and of course I've known his family for a long time also. Let me say that first of all, what was the need to bring this bill on the last day? You know, if you are bringing a salutary bill which has great moral overtones, do it in a way which is welcoming. You know, a good bill, you can always put it for discussion, take people into confidence, and then bring. Why bring it like with so much of trust deficit? Number two, as my friend Nalin, of course, mentioned about some MPs and MLAs. This bill is not for MPs and MLAs, by the way. This is only if you're a minister. You don't cease to be an MP or an MLA because you were put behind bars for 30 days. This is not the intent of the BJP government today through this bill. So that argument, of course, of his is not correct. And let me tell you that personally, I believe in the highest moral and ethical values in public life. I'm one of those. If forget a charge, if somebody even alleges something against me, which is obnoxious, I would not stay a day anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I feel that you should be scared of your shadow when you're in public life. I'm that sort of a person. So my problem is, what I see in this bill is that you brought this whole thing in a very strange atmosphere where there's so much of trust deficit. People look at every move of yours as something targeting at the opposition. Because in the last 10 years, all raids, all cases, everything is against opposition. Are you trying to say that nobody in BJP is corrupt? Nobody in BJP has money? Or I'm not alleging against anybody in particular. What I'm trying to say, the atmosphere, that as if all agencies are only targeting for the opposition. So if you bring such a bill in this atmosphere, how do you think it's going to be accepted or respected or welcomed?
Nalin, it's about intent. And that is the reason perhaps why there is this opposition as well to the way it's been brought in.
Vivek ji has correctly pointed out it's for the MPs and the MLAs. My example, and I must add to it because he's correct in my making that thing, it's not for an MP, MLA, but I'm just basically using the argument for public office in that sense. But yes, it is primarily those holding public office. And if someone of that stature, someone who's taken the oath of the Constitution, is found, say, with a raid of, say, ₹1 crore cash, should that person step down or not? Would the bail be easy or not? I mean, that's really a moral, ethical question. And Vivek ji, while he does point out to the good old days when resignations took place, in today's time, across governments, in states and others, we don't see that. It doesn't matter whether whose government it is, but that's a factual thing. We don't see that old politics that was earlier. And perhaps that is maybe because everyone believes, let us be proven guilty, because law says you are innocent until proven guilty. But let me come to the atmosphere bit, which is the more important point that he makes. Let me ask it in a different way. Vivek ji says and sir says that, look, suppose, yes, you had bought it earlier in a more congenial atmosphere. Has Parliament in this session functioned like that? Let's now look at it from how the opposition has behaved. So if it was bought on the second last day, how would it have been different? They were still disrupting. If it had been bought 7 days before this, it would still not have made a difference. The atmosphere was not congenial. There were attempts from the government also that can we have some Parliament functioning. So when it is not functioning, you don't have a choice. You bring it in the manner that the situation presents itself. Now, Parliament is a forum to function. Yes, the government has the primary responsibility, but it takes two to tango, two hands to clap. So if the BJP is on the government side, the treasury side making that effort, can the opposition say that no, we will disrupt endlessly? So the issue was even to that extent that when Subhranshu Shukla is to be discussed, that day also Parliament didn't function. That had nothing to do with the BJP. That has to be about celebrating an Indian going into space, the second Indian. So I think there are a lot of gaps. The opposition is entitled to have its point of view, but I wouldn't agree to those points directly because I think there's a counter view, which is what I'm presenting.
Mr. Tankha, final question then. Now that this bill, you've questioned the intent and the manner in which it's been brought in. You've correctly pointed out that there is a trust deficit. And let me personally also add, I don't think this will ever, apply to someone of your stature. Your own reputation for integrity precedes you. So let me place that very much here on the record. But do you believe that now that it's going into a committee in Parliament, it can be discussed at face value rather than the many political colors that have, rightly or wrongly, become layers over what is a very serious conversation on political corruption, sir?
And perhaps someone like Vivek ji also is part of that committee for his party to consider, because these are people with enormous amount of experience, not just in life, but also in law.
Mr. Tankha?
Let me tell you.
Yeah,
let me tell you, when I was Additional Solicitor General of India, Mr. Moily had constituted a committee for electoral reforms. And Election Commission was also a partner. Law Ministry was a partner. And with the Election Commission and the Law Minister, we traveled across country and held discussions with stakeholders, which included BJP chief ministers, even Mayawati ji, and all over. I still remember that everywhere we went, where we were talking to stakeholders, there's a crying need for electoral reforms. People are fed up with the kind of expenditure one has to incur for getting elected, which is a larger challenge, a bigger challenge. Then there are challenges about state funding, that even if you introduce state funding, would people still be funding after the state funding? So as I said, we have traveled so much and heard so much. I think this piecemeal attempt by the present government is highly insufficient. Of course, there's a trust deficit, which I said earlier.
Yeah.
But more than that, I thought there is a need that you should have a full-dress parliament session for 10 days, 15 days on election reforms. But today, a good person, an educated person, a professor or a teacher, they can't even think of fighting an election. The elections have become so expensive and so difficult. So I think there is a time for a larger debate rather than just a piecemeal reform.
Nalin, final word to you. Piecemeal, priorities, time for a larger debate.
On this point, I'd say that everyone who's in a democracy, all political parties, irrespective of their political hues, and what Vivek ji is saying is a point to consider in terms of the larger question of electoral reform. But that doesn't mean that a step in that direction has to be kept waiting till the larger discussion takes place. So I think there's a place for both.
Nalin Kohli and Vivek Tankha, illuminating. You're on both sides of the political spectrum right now. This is an issue which has supercharged the political conversation. There is a trust deficit, but as two seasoned, men of the law, it's really good to hear this conversation being under the spotlight. And we will continue to debate it. We'll have to see what happens in Parliament, in the committee, etc. But always a pleasure. Thank you very much, Mr. Tankha. Thank you very much, Mr. Kohli, for joining me.
Thank you, Nalin. Thank you, everybody.